It was another cool evening for Barron Trump. He wore a polo shirt and jeans, had well-combed hair, and a bright smile plastered. He was walking with his hands in his pockets to the street of his friend Joseph, and a sight struck him. He saw a woman well above 80, with wrinkles on her face, under the scorching sun, moving a cart. He paused and stared at her, willing to move closer to her, but reminded himself that he was on his way to visit a friend. He attempted to continue his journey, but felt a disturbing urge to greet her. "Hello, good evening, Ma," he greeted politely. "Good evening, young man. Hope you're fine," she responded with a smile. "I'm very well, Ma, thank you," was Barron's final response before he continued moving. Why is such an old woman pushing a cart alone when she should be resting? Barron thought to himself as he drew closer to Joseph's house. I wish I could see her on my way back from Joseph's house. She seems like a nice woman. If I see her again, I'll help her, he finally said before walking into Joseph's apartment. Joseph was a guy Barron's father did not readily approve of due to the different rumors about him. It took Barron's extra effort to bring Joseph into Donald Trump's good books. Amongst other things, Donald was very careful of the kind of people his son spent his time with. This was largely because he understood the power of association. He had been largely influenced by it, and he knew that the primary way to preserve anything he would give his son was to ensure he carefully studied the circle of friends he had. Barron never complained that his father was overprotective. He understood how much his father loved him. Joseph looked unserious because he liked to live under people's wrong perceptions of him, but Barron knew what he was made of. Joseph was happy to see Barron and ushered him inside to have a seat. He offered him snacks and drinks as they had a little chit-chat. They had time to discuss their common interest, desires, types of dressing, favorite clubs, and the nature of their parents. Barron had a lot of stories to tell about Donald, starting from his weird private life that no one could understand, but could bear with it after years of complaint. They had been indoors for hours since Barron came over to his house and were becoming bored. "Why don't we take a stroll down the street? Who knows, we just might find something fun to do along the way. It's better than being locked up for hours," Barron suggested. However, Joseph's response left him confused. "It is only rich people who take walks in the evening. The poor try to get another job to increase their sources of income and fend better." Barron got annoyed at the first instance, but calmed down after Joseph pleaded with him. Barron promised to forgive him only if they went for the walk together. Barron took his earpods and waited outside for Joseph to meet him at the door. Joseph showed no interest in the walk, but had no other choice. Barron tuned into one of his favorite songs, vying to the rhythm of the song while walking. Joseph was trying to stomach his feelings until they reached where they had to turn, and he stretched his hand to touch Barron, calling his attention. "You are playing music, so what do you expect me to do?" he asked him. Barron stared in shock, trying to understand the reason for his anger. "I do not understand," Barron confessed. Joseph held his hand. "Don't plug your ears in when you are walking with someone. If you do, it means you are not open to conversation. You should rather work toward initiating a discussion with the person you are walking with." Barron was still walking forward, but he perfectly understood what he was saying. He kept his phone and pods in his pocket, slowing down to walk at an even speed with Joseph. Barron decided to engage Joseph at a deeper level. They had loads of fun when they were inside, talking basically about fun and exciting things. However, it was time to have some serious discussion. Barron cleared his throat, glancing at a kiosk just at the end of the street. He started, "What is one thing you have learned recently that changed your perspective?" Joseph was shocked. He glanced at Barron, who was focused on the kiosk before him. Joseph dropped his shoulders and frowned. He did not know what to say since the question met him unprepared. He tried to arrange his words, but then he noticed Barron had stopped walking. He was consumed by a sight adjacent to the street. Joseph looked intently at what had captured Barron's attention, as more than one thing was happening on the street. A woman was walking with her child on her left side, a man was checking his car's bonnet, and a young girl was walking with her dog. He looked again, and as he traced Barron's gaze, he saw what caught his attention. Barron saw her taking shaky steps, trying everything within her power to avoid hitting the potholes, even as she pushed the cart gently like a child. It was the same woman he saw on his way to Joseph's house. She had a petite frame, slightly hunched from years of experience and wisdom carried on her shoulders. Her silver-gray hair was neatly tied back in a bun, or cut short for convenience. Her face was adorned with deep wrinkles, each telling a story of the laughter, worries, and wisdom she had accumulated over the years. Once bright and youthful, her eyes had a softer gaze, reflecting kindness and resilience. Her hands, thin with prominent veins, were a testament to decades of work, whether that had been raising children, working a job, cooking meals, or simply living through the changing times. She wore comfortable clothing, a knitted cardigan over a simple blouse, long skirt, or well-worn slacks. A pair of sturdy orthopedic shoes supported her every step. Her hands, rough and calloused from decades of labor, bore the marks of lifting crates, peeling fruit, and counting small coins with precision. She was a mile away, but Barron looked at her with strong empathy. Joseph knew his friend and hit him gently with his elbow. "Let's get going," he said, urging his friend forward, but Barron remained immovable. Barron was moved to tears. He had several questions to ask, and he remembered that any time he asked his father, he was never quick to respond. Donald had taught him that it took more than hard work and luck to be wealthy. Some people never had any opportunity to have something of value. All they experienced in life was a lack and a series of disappointments. They strived and fought for wealth, but did not win. And did they give up? No, they didn't. The reason why you won may be due to the resources and relationships you had that gave you leverage over the others who failed. If things work well for you, never think it was because you were better or stronger. Appreciate and celebrate your wins, and respect everyone you meet on the road to your destiny, because you never know when you will need those you think are worth nothing now. His father had taught him these lessons, and he held them dear. He looked at the old woman, taking steps gently, one after the other, the wind gently tossing her apron to the left and right. "I am going to meet her and engage her in a discussion," Barron told his friend. Joseph was not interested in such boring demands, but that would save him from Barron's question. He nodded, and Barron took the initiative to walk closer to the old woman. He got to her and greeted her respectfully before smiling at her. "Where are you going, ma'am?" he asked her, gently trying to stretch toward the handle of the cart to take it from her. She was reluctant. She paused and looked at Barron and Joseph. "What do you boys want?" she said in a shaky voice, finding it hard to understand what they wanted in the first place. Barron smiled at her and said, "We would love to help you move the cart to wherever you need it to be, Ma." The woman forced a smile. "I do not need help here, boys," she replied, but Barron pressed further until he took the cart from her. Joseph was staring at Barron, wondering what kind of man he was. He had seen Barron behave in ways that made him feel strange. Barron never exalted his status above relationships. He despised no one. He respected everyone and took time to know them. He was humble, irrespective of his status and the things he had. That was one thing Joseph needed to learn from him. He was never pressured to try to prove a point to others. He never tried to correct the wrong notion people had about him. He always remained at his best, offering help whenever and wherever possible. Joseph never dared to tell him, but Barron was his role model. "Where are you going to, Ma?" Barron asked her, moving the cart happily. He felt relieved that he could take the burden off her neck. If he could get to her destination, he would put her in a taxi and take her there while he walks with her cart till he brings it to where she wants it. "You don't know where I am going," she replied, as though she had calculated all her words and did not want to overspend. Barron did not want to decline for an answer. "Just let us know where you are going," he insisted, hoping for a positive response. She smiled and said nothing. After a while, she whispered to Barron, "I need to rest now. Please let us sit on that bench." She pointed at a bench across the street. Barron pushed the cart in that direction, and Joseph trailed behind them. They remained standing till she sat on the bench gently, using himself and Joseph as supports to lower her back. Barron sniffed and took his eyes away. She still had her lively smile. "You are good boys," she said with a single nod. Barron bowed and looked at the cart. "Where are you taking it to, Ma?" he asked again. His eyes met hers, and she could read that he was asking genuinely. Only then did she deem it fit to respond. "I would take it to the fruit stand to see if I can have some more sales." Barron turned immediately toward her direction, his face flushed with pain. "Sales?" he asked, dumbfounded. She nodded. "Yes." Barron ran his hand through his hair, feeling his heart melt in pain. The smile on her face turned into a worry. "Have I done anything wrong?" she asked Barron, who was too shocked to give a response. "No, Ma," he responded quickly, faking a smile. "I just wanted to know," he continued, finding no words to say. He looked at Joseph, and one glance at him. Joseph knew his friend was moved to pain. Barron would not only care for you with words, but would carry your burdens upon him like they were his. "Ma'am," Barron spoke, trying to clear his doubts. "Are you saying you have to sell this in the market today?" "Yes, like I do every day." Barron moved closer to her. "I thought you were just transporting it to somewhere safe, maybe because you did not want them to spoil." She shook her head and looked far to the street from which she came. "I sell fruits for a living. I have been doing this for several years, and God has been faithful." Barron sat beside her, intrigued by her stories. She looked too old to not have any children or grandchildren. Barron frowned. He did not want to peer into her private issues, but had to ask. "Ma, do you have any children?" he asked her, looking straight into her eyes. She nodded. "I had, but they are gone now." "Gone how?" Joseph quickly chipped in, feeling left out of the discussion. She shrugged. "I was phoned by someone I did not know to be informed that my children, who were traveling for a function, were murdered by the roadside by some criminal. I asked for the location of the person who called, and he said he was not going to tell me," she said, tears forming in her eyes. "I involved the police and told everyone I knew about it, but nothing was done. The police said they went to the location of the call. They were able to track it somehow, and there were no dead bodies. They were kidnapped then, and probably taken to a different country." Joseph tried to fill in the blank spaces. She looked at him and shrugged again. I can't say. I looked for them for a year before a few friends advised me to give up the search. I refused to at first, but I had to. None of my kids were married, so I don't have any grandchildren. I refused to give birth again. Barron was interested, so he cut in immediately. Why didn't you give birth? She scoffed. I was already 60 then. You don't want me to have any peace of mind as a granny? Then she looked away. That was even before my husband passed. So, you are all alone? Joseph asked, surprised. She nodded. It doesn't hurt anymore, boys. Do not cry over spilled milk. She tapped Barron's shoulders. I am fine now, she said, faintly smiling. Barron bowed his head in pain. Why was life unfair to some and abundantly merciful to some others? He never found an answer to that question. He was grateful he was among the favored, but he felt empathy for those on the other side and wished everyone could have things equally. But that was impossible. Maybe some people had more so they could give to those who did not have at all. He felt that was the ultimate reason. It was not just about their comfort and extravagance alone. It was about helping a few people, making life easy for others, and solving others' problems. Since when have you been doing this, Ma? Barron asked, staring at her intently. She kept mute as though she was trying to remember. She frowned after a few attempts. I cannot remember, but it should be well above 7 years. Barron's heart was gripped with pain. How well does this business pay you? Barron asked again. Well, enough to pay for a meal when I need to eat something, she replied. Barron studied her and ran his eyes through her body. She had no makeup on. Barron still felt something was not right. Did she not have a community, group of friends, church members, or anyone she could confide in who could lessen her struggle? There had to be someone. If she had been good and kind when she was young, she would have had someone to help. Barron wanted to ask, but had difficulty knowing how to ask without hurting her feelings. Ma, is there no one you could talk to who could help you? Barron said, and Joseph nodded in support. She did not have to go through this stress alone. She could rest, knowing someone was going to get something for her. She wore a faint smile and directed her look to Barron. Am I crippled? Barron lost his balance with that question. I don't understand, Ma. She adjusted on the seat and said, I am not a cripple. Why then will I be at the mercy of someone else when I can walk and work? Why wait for someone to work while I eat from his labor when I can also labor? I don't have to do that. I am not a beggar, boys. She gave a funny laugh. I am old, she continued, but not a beggar. Barron was surprised by the kind of mindset she had. How was she able to build herself? What made her keep striving toward her future, not choosing to be at the mercy of others even at her age? Barron was not just encouraged, he was challenged. He saw a woman ready to take responsibility for her life, regardless of the wrongs and ill luck she experienced in the past. Joseph's eyes met with Barron's, and they did nothing but marvel at each other. She tapped Joseph and Barron. Let's get going before my customers go home. They stood side by side with her, and she placed her weight on them so she could stand. After standing, she rested on them, trying to straighten her back. Barron took hold of the cart and started to push it toward the commercial center she had described to him. He couldn't understand everything she said and was more disturbed about her than when they first met. They started walking toward the fruit stand, Barron's heart still burdened by all he had heard about her. Joseph slowly approached and stared at her, still concerned about her children. He was surprised at Barron's speed in leaving what seemed so important. He wanted to ask but did not know how to. The sun began to set gently, and Barron discovered he was moving at a pace she struggled to keep up with. He reduced his pace, moving only when she had taken a few steps before him. Barron had plans in place for her. He wanted to know her spot in the fruit stand, so he could reach out to her whenever he wanted to. What else do you know about your children, Ma? Joseph chipped in. Barron looked at him and back to the woman whose smile faded at the question. She sighed and took a while to respond. A part of me feels they are somewhere, watching me. I do not know if they are alive, but I believe they are somewhere watching me. Joseph turned at her. Did they travel together that day? She thought for a while before nodding. The three of them went together for something special. God knows a part of me did not want to release them, but I wanted them to have joy too. Joseph looked at Barron, who was fixed on pushing the cart forward and following the direction she was giving him. Joseph folded his arms while walking. You remember their names? She glanced at him and smiled. Why won't I? 2 males, 1 female. Joseph, John, and Jasmine. Joseph and Barron's eyes met in shock. Joseph? Barron asked. Yes. The woman nodded. Joseph was the eldest. He was dark, tall, and slim. He looked so much like his father. His father gave him his name because he wanted him to bear Junior. I told him it was silly, but he didn't listen. Joseph stopped walking abruptly. They both turned to look at him. Is anything wrong? Barron asked, holding the cart firmly. Joseph was held spellbound. He lost words, but none could come to a quick conclusion. Can you say more details about your son, Joseph? She looked at him, turned, and moved closer. Do you know where my son is? Joseph frowned deeply. I don't know if he is your son, but my father also named me Joseph because he wanted a junior. She quickly straightened her weak shoulders. Does he stay around? She asked. He looked across. Somewhere there, he replied. She held his shoulders. Has he ever taken you to your granny? Her eyes were wet with tears. Joseph looked at her for a long while before shaking his head in decline. You have not met your granny? She asked him again. Joseph gave the same response. She sighed and looked at him. "What's your father's name, son?" "Joseph. I am Joseph Jr. My father's separation from his mother happened through this same story, and his siblings, John and Jasmine, didn't make it. My father managed to escape from the criminals alone," he said. They stared at each other, curiosity eating Barron's skin. He badly wanted to know if she was his granny. She gently rubbed his cheek with her right palm, studying his face and looking intently at her eyes. Barron could see the connection between them, strongly pulling them together. After a few seconds, she pulled him closer and hugged him, shedding cold tears. Joseph wept on her shoulders. The feeling of love enveloped the whole atmosphere. Barron was also moved to tears, but fought it with every ounce of strength. Joseph pulled from her embrace gently and looked at Barron. "One thing I have learned recently that has changed my perspective is that you never know when that which you seem to have lost will appear before you again. You only have to pay attention to find it and never lose hope." After he made that statement, he soaked himself into her embrace. When Mr. Joseph's father, finally met his long-lost mother, the reunion between son and mother was profound. Barron was grateful he didn't resist the urge to start a conversation with the old woman. The conversation birthed an unforgettable reunion. Barron also put helpers in place to assist the old woman with her fruit business, so she wouldn't always stress herself. She declined his offer, but he insisted. Joseph remained grateful to Barron for insisting on talking to the old woman that day. He changed not only her life, but his as well. What are your thoughts about Barron's refusal to ignore the burning urge that day? Let us know in the comments. If this video was inspiring, like, share, and subscribe to this channel. You can also turn on the notification bell to be notified of new posts. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen. See you next time.